I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting, May 22nd, 2024. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Lestracco.
Here.
Commissioner Partha.
Here.
So we have a new addition not only to our dais tonight, but also to our staff. We have a summer intern, Ryan O'Donnell, who is with us. And Ryan is going to learn that one of the ways we say thank you and welcome is to mildly embarrass him by having him lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So if you would, Ryan, lead us. We go from there.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Did well under the pressure. He is our summer intern. He is a Virginia Tech, a rising junior at Virginia Tech, and he's studying city planning. And we are very excited to have you aboard. So welcome. And that was your hazing right there. All right. So is there a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we can move ahead with the agenda. We have a couple of housekeeping items before we start the hearing, so it'll probably take about maybe not even 5 minutes, so bear with us for a second. Is there a motion to move the consent items in your agenda into the record?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lestracco.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Those consent items include the Board of Commissioners meeting minutes of April 10 and April 24, the Treasurer's report for the month of May, the bills payable, paid bills in the amount of $531,685.66, and unpaid bills in the amount of $820,630.64. With that, I'll call a question. All in favor of moving those into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, those are moved into the record. All right, citizens' comments. Not on the case, obviously. We'll save that for a little bit later. But are there any citizens' comments on agenda items? All right, not seeing anyone move up to the podium. We have a couple of quick action items, two of which are very exciting. But we'll start with the first one, which is Resolution 24-16. Is there a motion for approval to begin the 18-month maintenance period for Bergey's Kia land development?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lestracco. Aaron, if you want to state, it's a housekeeping item, but if you want.
Light on microphone, so I don't think anybody over there has one, which is good. Chief won't be presenting anything tonight. This is just a simple action item saying that the public improvements associated with the Bergey's Kia have been completed, and now they enter into a maintenance phase, which is 18 months. That guarantees all of those said public improvements. If anything damaged within that period of time, applicant has to replace them as new. So this starts the clock.
All right. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 24-16, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. All right, we have two very exciting motions that we're going to take and we're going to vote on, and that's because they are conditional offers of employment to two patrolmen, and we're going to take each of the motions separately, and then I think Mr. Bebro is going to mention to us a little bit about the process. But let me start first. Is there a motion to provide, or will someone make a motion to provide a conditional offer of employment to Eric Evans as a patrolman based on the eligibility list certified by the Hatfield Township Civil Service Commission, conditioned upon successful completion of a psychological and physical exam? Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Partha. All right, so let's tell you what's happening is we have a couple of police officers who are retiring. They're anticipated retirements, and the replacements go through a process that the Hatfield Township Civil Service Commission handles. I'll go with it. So essentially, what takes place is, when it gets to this point, we're the ones who make a conditional offer of employment, but between Chief and the Civil Service Commission, there is a process made up of residents, and there's three members of the Civil Service Commission, all Hatfield residents, and I believe there's at least one, if not two, alternates as well, two alternates. And as a part of that, they take a look at the testing that's done, the results of interview process that's done for the applicants, and a decision is made from that group, from that commission. It's a recommendation to the board to make offers of employment to, tonight, two different, will be police officers. And so that process is, I was a member of it many, many years ago. It's an extremely important process. We really appreciate the hard work and effort that the residents who are members of the commission put into that. And tonight is kind of the fruition of those two, that process for at least two people. And the first one we just mentioned is a conditional offer of employment to Eric Evans. So, Chief, I don't know if you or Aaron, if you have anything else you want to add.
Covered it all?
That's it?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, with that, I'll ask the question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved, and an offer will be going out to Eric Evans. Second motion is a motion to provide a conditional offer of employment to Kiara Masaya as a patrolman based on the eligibility list certified by the Hatfield Township Civil Service Commission, conditioned upon successful completion of a psychological and physical exam. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Lustracco. Same exact issue, same exact process. Another candidate who we're going to make an offer to, very excited to make this offer to her. She's got a lot of experience and academic and practical experience. And so any other questions before we take the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. And both applicants can be told. Vice President Rogers just reminded me, and I appreciate that, to let you know that the board met prior to tonight's meeting to discuss real estate. Executive session, what did I say? Okay, that we just met. And we just met, personnel and real estate. All right, we're going to move on to the public hearing, which is what I was trying to quickly get to, and I'm going to hand it over to our solicitor.
Motion's in order to open the hearing.
I'll make the motion, the chair will make the motion to open up the hearing.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of moving into the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are moved into the hearings.
Thank
Ms. Solicitor,
you.
it's your ball.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the second hearing, a continuation of the hearing on the application of Pulte Homes of PA Limited Partnership for 336 Orvilla Road. The first hearing was April 24, 2024. Tonight, we are going to continue with the applicant's next witness. At the last hearing, we spent a lot of time on parties and establishing who is and who's not a party. The applicant called her first witness, which was a civil engineer. The questions of that witness have been exhausted. Any redirect? No? We have
Yes, redirect.
Okay, so this is the applicant's case. Julie Von Spreckelsen is representing the applicant. She'd like to do some redirect for witness. Obviously, that's okay. After you're done asking questions, we'll see if Mr. Panzer, who's special counsel, has any questions, see if the commissioners have any questions, and those who are granted party status can then ask questions at that time. And then Ms. Von Spreckelsen can move from her to her next witness and next witness. I saw a hand. If anyone does want to speak, hang on, sir, and if you could go to the podium, I'd appreciate that. And while you're doing that, everyone can see the court stenographer here at the front. Make sure everyone who does want to speak has to be recognized. You have to go to the podium, please, because we're recording this not only on video, but it helps with the audio should the stenographer need it. We do this in an orderly fashion and make sure I get your address. I take notes, so if I don't hear you, I may ask you to repeat yourself, so bear with me. Yes, sir, what's your question?
I was going to ask, can we get party status for those of us who were not able to attend the last meeting?
You can request it, sure. I have to grab my list. sir.
Thomas Deller.
Thomas, what's your last name?
Deller, D as in David, Eller.
What's your address, Thomas?
1526 Leon.
Probably got a notice of the hearing, right?
Yes.
We sent notices beyond those within 500 feet, and 500 feet is our trigger spot of those who automatically get party status. In my opinion, the applicant's counsel is going to disagree with that, but if you just give me 1 second, we're going to check this for you. Okay, it looks like you're within 500 feet of the subject property. Julie?
Yes. Mr. Deller?
Yes.
Is that, I just want to make sure I said it correctly. How are you affected by this application then differently than other residents within the township?
I'm most concerned about the water runoff, stormwater runoff and retention.
Okay. I would object to this witness having party status.
Tom, do you have any questions for this witness?
No questions and no objection to Mr. Deller.
Will grant you party status, Mr. Deller. Objection noted. Yes, sir? Do you also want party status? What's your name?
Michael Donahue,
And what's your address, Michael?
600 Brighton.
Under Brighton. Okay, I already have 600 Brighton for Susan Donahue on my list, who was granted party status. Any objection, Julie?
Yes. How are you affected differently by this application than other residents within the township?
I'm affected by all the traffic that is going to be, coming through our neighborhood because of no other entrance or exit, from the proposed, facility.
And I'm sorry, you said your wife already has party status?
Correct.
I would object to party status.
Okay, no objection, right, Tom? Okay, your objection is noted. You have party status, Mr. Donahue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Victoria Camuso. I'm at 1619 Leon Drive.
Victoria, how do you spell your last name?
A-M-U...
I'm sorry, first initial?
My first initial?
First letter, I'm sorry.
C.
Go ahead.
A-M-U-S-O. Welcome.
Like you're within 500 feet of the property. Questions, Julie?
Same question. How are you affected differently by this application than other residents within the township?
I am directly across the street from Buckthorn, one of the avenues of entry or egress out of that neighborhood.
I object to party status.
Okay, objection noted. Tom, no objection, right?
Objection.
Okay, you're granted party status.
Thank you.
Objection noted. Anyone else?
Mary Bleakley, B-L-E-A-K-L-Y, 1640 Leon Drive.
No, you're within 400 feet. Julie?
Same question. How are you affected differently by this application than other residents?
Our property butts right up against the Pulte property, and I'm worried about traffic.
Okay. Note my objection for the record.
Okay, so noted. Tom, no objection, right?
Objection.
Okay, Mary, you have party status. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
How you doing? Greg Rubenkam, R-U-B-I-N-K-A-M, 1619 Leon Drive.
Okay, you're within 500 feet. Julie, questions?
Mr. Rubenkam, how are you affected differently by this application than other residents within the township?
All the assumed traffic that'll be coming through the neighborhood.
I object.
Okay, objection noted. No objection, right, Tom? Okay, Greg, you have party status. Yes, sir.
Greg Homont, H-O-M-O-N-T, 1624 Leon Drive.
Your first name again?
Greg.
You're within 500 feet. Julie?
And how are you affected differently by this application than other residents within the township?
Graphics for one.
water runoff. I'm concerned about blasting.
I object.
Okay, so noted. Tom, no objection?
Objection.
Okay, you have party status. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay, let the record reflect I see no hands. Julie, you can start your redirect.
I'm going to hand out some exhibit booklets first.
Don't have enough. We can share.
Julie, can you pass out some extras to the people in the crowd? I think what we'll do, going to hand out an extra or two so you guys can flip through it. These are probably going to be on the screen too, right, Julie? Okay, and then we can email them again. At the end of the hearing last time, we took people's email addresses and then emailed you the exhibits so that you could have them. So if you didn't provide your email address last time, at the end of this, please come up and do that so we can email them to you. Okay?
Okay to begin? Chris? And you're still under oath, correct?
Still under oath.
Would you please put up the Exhibit A8?
Yep.
Okay. So Chris, included in this exhibit booklet as Exhibit A8 is a rendered conditional use plan with the last revised date of May 17th, 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
And why was the conditional use plan revised after the previous hearing?
Based on some of the questions during cross-examination, additional detail was added to the plan in the way of a developable area chart, some open space area calculations, and we also added sidewalk to both sides of the street.
And are soil lines and wetlands delineated also on the plan?
Yes.
So I'm going to start with the second page of Exhibit A8, which is Conditional Use Details Exhibit. Why was this exhibit prepared, and what does it show?
This exhibit was prepared to show blow-ups of two areas that were specifically discussed. The top of this page shows the lots that are adjacent to Leon Drive. There was questions regarding setbacks and separation distances. This shows the 40-foot rear yard setback that is required as part of the cluster development, and further shows the 50 feet of separation that's provided with the open space between the proposed lots and the existing lots.
Was that additional 50 feet of separation required by the zoning ordinance and the conditional use criteria?
No, we are not required to place the open space in this area. There was a neighbor meeting that happened prior to filing of this application, and it was brought up to try to provide separation within this area.
So what you're saying is, just to clarify and make sure I understand it, so from the building line of the properties that are being developed, the individual units, to the property lines of the Leon Drive residence, there's 90 feet of separation,
That is correct.
and 40 feet is required by the ordinance.
Correct.
Residents, where you're talking?
So this area here shows
You're going to
the,
have to describe it a little better.
sorry, I'm pointing at the lot 52 in the middle here has the dimensions for the required yards the dimension for the rear yard setback, which goes from the building envelope line here to the proposed lot line, this is 40 feet. From the existing property line here to the proposed lot line, that is the 50 feet of open space that's being provided, with a total of 90 feet from the property line to the building envelope line.
Okay. And then the bottom portion of that exhibit, what does that show?
The bottom portion is a slightly expanded view to the east. The rendered conditional use plan does not go out to Orville Road, and we had discussions about the existing easement here, so we wanted to show a blow-up that shows the entirety of the easement from Orville Road to our property line.
Okay, thank you. So let me direct your attention back to page 1, first sheet in Exhibit A, which is the conditional use plan. You stated that a developable area calculation was added to the plan. Can you describe that, explain it for us?
Yes, so as part of the code, certain items need to be taken out of the lot area to determine the developable area. Those include waters, wetlands, floodplain areas, including floodplain soils, easements, and overhead lines. We had previously shown a developable area on the plans, but did not break down the calculation.
And you were asked questions about that, is that correct?
Correct. We were asked questions about specific items and how the information was shown or included.
So you've now added that to the chart, correct?
Yes.
And what are those breakdowns?
So we had ECS, who is an environmental engineer, go out and do a delineation for wetlands and waters for the entire site. We already had the stream, which had been surveyed as part of the original survey work that was done. ECS did identify 2 small areas of wetlands, which they provided us a CAD file for to show the location. Those 2 areas of wetlands are contained within what we had already had as a 50-foot assumed floodway for the unnamed tributary, which did not affect the developable area. We also looked at the NRCS soil mapping because there are certain soils that are considered floodplain soils and non-developable area per the ordinance. There are some of those soils that generally follow the stream. There was a slight increase in the non-developable area once those were plotted.
And what was that slight increase?
So the total developable area went down by 0.397 acres.
And again, that's all with regard to alluvial soils only.
Correct.
And does this 0.397 acre difference affect the density calculations?
It does not. We are still proposing 2 dwelling units per acre.
Does it affect any of the other calculations contained in the zoning compliance table?
It is also used for determining open space requirements, as 15% of the developable area is required to be maintained as open space, and we are still exceeding that amount.
And what is that calculation after subtracting out the alluvial soils?
Previously, we had shown that we had an 18% open space proposed. Now we have 17.7, so it was only a minor change.
And still exceeds the open space requirements of the ordinance, correct?
Correct, 15% is required.
Okay. So also at the previous hearing, you were asked a number of questions with regard to the cartway widths of the interior roadways. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are required cartway width provisions found in the zoning ordinance?
No, they're found within the subdivision and land development ordinance.
So cartway widths are not a conditional use criteria, are they?
No.
And did you review the township subdivision land development ordinance provisions regarding cartway widths?
Yes.
And what do those provisions state?
For this development, a single-family residential, you can have a cartway width of 28 feet. For cul-de-sacs, which we have in the southeast corner of the site, the required cartway width is 34 feet.
And is there sufficient property area to widen the cul-de-sac cartway width to 34 feet if the Saldo subdivision land development ordinance provision isn't waived during land development if the application moves to the land development process?
Yes, for both street classifications, 50 feet of right-of-way is required, and we are providing that. So within that 50 feet of right-of-way, we could provide the cartway width and sidewalks that are required per the ordinance.
And would increasing the cul-de-sac cartway width require a reduction in density?
No, everything would be contained within the right-of-way that we are already proposing.
And would increasing the cul-de-sac cartway width in any way affect the conditional use criteria found in zoning ordinance section 28230E and F?
No.
And you were asked a number of times by a number of different witnesses whether you spoke with the fire marshal with regard to the safety of 28-foot wide cartway widths. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And in fact, as you just testified, 28-foot wide cartway widths are permitted for this development. Is that correct?
Yes.
And has Bowler worked on other residential developments in Hatfield Township that have 28-foot wide cartway widths?
Yes. The Del Webb Pulte project to the northeast has 28-foot wide cartway widths. We also did the Bexley project and Sterling Walk with WB Homes, and they both have cartway widths of 28 feet and less.
You're saying and less than 28 feet. Which development has less than 28-foot wide cartway width?
Sterling Walk has a section of cartway width that is 26 feet.
26 feet. And are you familiar with any other single-family dwelling developments within Hatfield Township that have 28-foot wide cartways?
Yes, the Walters property subdivision at Cowpath Road and Township Line Road also has 28-foot wide cartways.
And did the fire marshal approve cartway widths of 28 feet for the cul-de-sacs in the Del Webb and the WB Homes Bexley developments?
Yes.
And was a waiver granted by the Board of Commissioners to allow a 28-foot wide cul-de-sac cartway width for those developments?
Yes.
Okay, you were also asked on cross-examination if emergency vehicles such as fire trucks have sufficient area to safely turn and maneuver the 28-foot wide cartways and the emergency accesses. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe you testified in the affirmative.
Correct.
And so did you then prepare an exhibit showing truck circulations to demonstrate this?
Yes.
And is that Exhibit A9 of the exhibit booklet?
Yes.
And would you please describe that exhibit? I know it's a little bit difficult to see.
It is. So this exhibit has the overall site plan, which has the fire truck coming in and circulating throughout the site. We also have cars shown parked on one side of the road, which is common for developments like this. They would be restricted to parking on one side. I have two blow-up areas shown on the top left of the plan. This is the access to Orvilla Road. So this is Orvilla Road in the middle of the page, and this is the easement coming into our property and the emergency access proposed into the cul-de-sac. This shows with cars parked in the cul-de-sac, the fire truck is able to come in and circulate without any conflicts. The other blow-up area is along Buckthorn and Grapevine coming into our site at the first intersection. It shows that fire trucks can use the emergency access off of Buckthorn, and it also shows that there's no conflicts with the turning maneuvers at the intersection on the site. And again, there's a car parked on one side. The truck has plenty of room to maneuver around it.
So moving on, you were also asked at the last hearing by a number of individuals whether the common open space area is, quote, contiguous, unquote.
Correct.
To clarify, what is the exact language of the common space or common open space ordinance provision that state?
The provision states that common open space shall be designed as a continuous system of open space and shall be interconnected with open space areas on abutting parcels whenever possible.
So the terminology and phrase is continuous system, not contiguous, is that correct?
Correct.
And is continuous system defined in the zoning ordinance?
No.
Prepare an exhibit showing the common open space area?
Yes.
And is that Exhibit A10?
Yes.
The exhibit booklet?
Can we go to the next exhibit?
Please explain what that exhibit shows.
This exhibit shows different colors for the total common open space area. The common open space area is comprised of undevelopable area, which is this lighter green, which surrounds the stream, floodplain soils, and wetland areas. The blue areas are stormwater management basins, which are included in the common open space, but not counted towards the minimum required calculation. And then these yellowish green colored areas are the areas that we are counting as part of the calculated open space. The total common open space along the north, west, and southern portions of the site is interconnected as they are all touching. The other open spaces are now part of the continuous system with the added sidewalk giving access and walkability to each open space area.
And to clarify, sidewalks are being proposed on both sides of the roadways, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And there is a portion of the trail that connects from the street to the common open space at the southern portion of the property as well, correct?
Correct. There's a trail connection to the most southern portion at the cul-de-sac, and then moving to the west, there is also another trail connection to the sidewalk.
Okay, and in your opinion, does Exhibit A10 show that the common open space area is designed as a continuous system?
Yes, since we have trails and sidewalks connecting everything, it is a continuous system. The roadway dividing the different areas is the same as other projects within the township that I previously mentioned. The Bexley development and even the Walters development has common open space areas that are divided by a roadway.
And connected by sidewalk, correct?
Correct.
Okay, you were also asked about Section 282:30.G1E, which states that common open space shall be physically delineated from adjoining private lands using berms, fencing, or other means. And does the proposed development comply with this provision?
Yes, we still have it shown on the plan, but there is a 10-foot wide landscape buffer shown around the entire perimeter of the property. And within that area, we would propose any berming or landscaping that we can, which the design of that would be finalized if this moves forward to land development.
Okay. So you were also questioned regarding the availability of public sewer, is that correct?
Yes.
And your testimony at the last hearing was that you were informed by Hatfield Authority that there is available capacity via Orvilla Road, but you had not confirmed it yet in writing with the authority. Is that correct?
Correct.
And since the time of the last hearing, have you been able to confirm sewer capacity for the proposed development?
Yes.
So let's start with Exhibit A11. That's the Hatfield Township Chapter 94 Waste Load Management Report dated March 25th, 2024. Can you please explain what the report is, who prepared it, and to what agency it was submitted?
This report is prepared, it was prepared by GHD engineers on behalf of the municipal authority. They need to prepare a report every year and give it to DEP to show the status of the sewer system, its capacity, any projected overloads, and any issues.
And what does the report conclude regarding treatment capacity?
Section 3.1 and 3.2 discuss hydraulic loading and organic loading for the facility. 3.1 specifically refers to a table 6 within the report that shows that they are under the design flow, which means they still have capacity. And for the organic loading, which is section 3.2, that also refers to another table 3, which shows that they are under the design load with their projected flows, meaning that there is capacity.
And how long is that projected? Available flows?
5 years.
Okay. And since the last hearing, have you been able to confirm directly with the municipal authority the availability of capacity for the proposed development?
Yes.
And if you turn to Exhibit A12, there are some emails from the authority, between you and the authority, and I believe the applicant as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And can you read the emails that relate to the capacity?
Yes, so the first one would be on page 4, where Mike Leitner from the Sewer Authority had given us information regarding capacity and conveyance. In there, he wrote specifically to me, there's some issues with the proposed tie-in and the pipes down line, and wanted to discuss it with me. Then there's several other back and forth emails just regarding some of the attachments and trying to get that worked out, ultimately concluding with the email on the first page that Mike had discussed it with Pete at the authority and they were going to work on a conditional capacity letter.
So are the emails from the authority consistent with the Chapter 94 report as it relates to the treatment and plant capacity?
Yes.
The email from the authority notes a sewer line conveyance issue, is that correct?
Correct.
And the authority's letter of May 17th, 2024 states this as well, is that correct?
Yes.
And if there is a conveyance issue in the sewer line, what would need to occur to resolve that issue?
The developer would need to upgrade the system to provide additional capacity within that line or that flow area.
So it's about upgrading the sewer line.
Correct.
And is applicant willing to upgrade the sewer line piping or other conveyance facilities at its sole cost and expense?
Yes, they are. And for this site and based on the letter that we got, any developer that would try to do something on this parcel would need to upgrade the conveyance system.
And that would be any development at all that came in to develop that site would require it?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is upgrading the piping and other conveyance facilities, does that confer a benefit on the township, public health, safety, and welfare?
Yes, it does. And in the Chapter 94 report, the Township Sewer Authority even discusses other upgrades that they've been doing to the system. So this would be on top of improvements that are already being made.
And are you able to confirm on behalf of the applicant that applicant agrees as a condition of conditional use approval, if granted, that the applicant shall provide sewer line conveyance facility upgrades if required by the authority and DEP to the satisfaction of the authority and DEP at its sole cost and expense?
Yes.
That's all I have of this witness.
Tom, you're up.
Can you hear me? Mr. Bazunas, you have been busy in the last 30 days.
Speak into the mic.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Just
Can
a
you hear
little
me?
closer. Yeah, you just have to stay
Press
close.
the button. Is it better now? No?
Yep, you're good. Just stay close to it.
Mr. Bazunas, you've been busy in the last month, no?
I would strike that question. That's just argumentative and
Council just dumped.
irrelevant.
Council just dumped about 50 pages of new information on me. I have not had an opportunity to review it.
This is a zoning hearing.
I think one cheeky remark is appropriate.
Say that again, Tom. You trailed off.
I'll move on to the next question.
Okay.
Jonas, with regard to the sewer capacity, it is still accurate that you have not received an unconditional letter of capacity from the authority, correct?
The letter states that the treatment plant has capacity, but there is a conveyance issue.
So, do not yet have full authority from the authority that they are able to provide to you what you need. They're working on it with you, but it's not yet fully resolved. Is that accurate?
I would object to the form of the question.
It's an appropriate question. He can answer it.
Yes, there's issues that still need to be resolved.
With regard to the open space that you show to plan north of the plan that's on the screen above, I think it's A7.
We started with A8.
Yeah, it's A8.
It's A8, today's plan A8. So the color one is fine. Thank you. So the ribbon of open space at the top carries a trail between the rear yards of the proposed dwellings and the rear yards of the dwellings on Leon Drive, correct?
Yes.
Now, under the ordinance, if you are going to consider property as open space, part of that continuous open space, it needs to be 75 feet in width, right? That's the general rule, yes?
Unless a trail is provided, yes.
So the answer is yes. The exception is if a trail is provided, right?
Correct.
So you want credit for buffering by putting a 50-foot instead of a 75-foot, and then you're running a trail through it so that the buffer will be used for pedestrian, equestrian, and biking use. Is that accurate?
Those are the uses listed for the trail. I would not expect there to be equestrian use of this trail specifically, mainly pedestrian and bicycles.
You mentioned several other developments in discussing road widths and other items. Bexley and the Walters developments are two that I jotted down. Were those your projects?
The Bexley one was prepared by Bowler.
So someone else in your office.
Yes.
Were you with the firm then?
Yes.
You weren't on the project.
Not directly.
So how is it that you've come to learn so much detail about the Bexley, Walters, and the other multiple developments that you talked about today?
The Bexley project specifically, I was just researching our own projects within Hatfield Township that had approvals.
Walters?
Same thing, Walters is an approved project, so we were looking for records of other approved projects within the township.
So you have those documents?
I have the record plan for Walters here, yes.
Record plan for Bexley.
Correct.
The other ones you mentioned?
The Del Webb Hatfield, which is the Pulte project to the northwest, and Sterling Walk.
And both of those have approved plans, and
Correct.
they're public records, so if I wanted to get them, I could probably find them.
Yes.
They do that, and then I may have some more questions for you. You've mentioned the easement. It runs from the cul-de-sac on plan south out to Orvilla Road.
The easement only runs across the properties from Orvilla Road to our property line.
You show us a picture of the land, that is the aerial, attach the easement document to your packet.
No, the easement document was not included.
Have you reviewed the easement document?
Yes, I have reviewed the easement document.
So you did possess it.
Yes, it was included as part of the title search that was done for the Alta survey.
So if I ask for it, I might be able to get it from you.
Yes.
The table you amended for the natural resources used another engineering firm, ECS, to compile data for you?
Correct.
Did ECS
What's the name of that entity?
ECS?
What's it stand for?
I do not know. Hold on.
Is that the complete name, or is that an acronym?
It's ECS Mid-Atlantic LLC.
And did ECS Mid-Atlantic LLC provide to you a report or a compilation of data with explanation?
They provided us with a CAD file showing what they delineated for waters and wetlands.
And you incorporated that into your...
Correct.
I'd like to defer any further questions with regard to you.
This witness is not coming back after tonight.
Well, you did bring a whole lot of new information, and you didn't provide it to Mr. Panzer ahead of time.
So I'm assuming I'm going to get the same courtesies then when Mr. Panzer puts on his witnesses.
You will get the same courtesy, I assure you. Same courtesy you've extended. I mean,
So, Tom, you'd like to recall this witness out after you've had the opportunity, or did you ask, I couldn't hear you all the time. Did you ask for a copy of that plan from ECS?
sir, would you please provide the documentation, the CAD file, and the source data that you incorporated into your plan so we can review it?
Yes.
I'd like to reserve the right to recall him. I may or may not recall him after I review the data.
Okay. From the board members? Yeah, I have some questions before we take that break, if you don't mind. So, Chris, in your testimony, I just want to clarify a couple things you said. You said that the developable acreage calculations and that report that you got delineated wetlands and waters. When you say waters, you mean waters of the Commonwealth, right?
Correct.
That's a distinct term that means something in soil worlds, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how many units were developed in each of those developments that you referenced relative to the cartway width? And Del Webb is an age-restricted community, right?
Correct. Del Webb is age restricted. Walters is 63 units. Sterling Walk is 40. Bexley, 35. 35 along the cul-de-sac, and I believe there's an additional unit, which makes it 36. And Del Webb, $321 units.
And do you know if there's parking on both sides of those streets in all those developments?
Parking on one side.
On all four?
Yeah, it was restricted.
Okay. And they're all private streets, not dedicated, right?
I do not know if some of them were. I know that Del Webb is private, Sterling is private. I do not know if Bexley is a private street or not, and I'm not sure about Walters either.
And are you providing parking on both sides of the street in this development?
It would be restricted to one side.
One side. That's all I have. So the board wants to take 5? Okay. We're going to take a little recess, stretch our legs, and come back. Okay, we almost ready. Who are we waiting on, Aaron?
I was going to say, this might be one of those times where he's...
All right.
Not
Julie, you
directly
ready?
involved.
I am.
Okay, you have another witness? Oh, no, let's have questions. The commissioners have questions, and then we'll see if anybody who's a party has questions, but we'll let the commissioners go first. Go ahead.
First? Okay.
Yep.
Anybody?
Yeah, I have a question about the easement that goes out to Villa Road. Is that a shared driveway, or is there a driveway there that goes back to that house?
It is currently a shared gravel driveway.
That would be used as an emergency?
Correct. For emergency access.
So the person that owns that property get to their house, block that driveway, that would be...
The driveway wouldn't be blocked.
If they had a party and all the cars lined up parking there and all that stuff?
You mean if they blocked the driveway?
I think the question is, how do you ensure that no one's going to park on that shared driveway when the property owner uses it?
We can't ensure that there aren't going to be other cars there as it's a shared easement. If there was an emergency that a fire truck had to use that entrance specifically and the others were also blocked, that would probably be an unlikely scenario because we have 2 emergency accesses plus the direct access to Grapevine.
Well, if
That's the one for the extension of the cul-de-sac, correct?
Correct.
And typically, you need an emergency.
You
I'm just kind
typically
of struggling.
I think what Commissioner Rogers is saying is you can't guarantee that that emergency access will remain free and clear
Yeah.
for emergency vehicles.
Well, I'm going to object. I mean, the easement says what the easement says, and it provides for access, and it can't be blocked. So, I mean, lots of properties have emergency access and easements, and some properties just have a shared driveway or a shared access easement. And
Actually, no. Most emergency access are not shared with other people as driveways. So
Well,
if you're going
I disagree.
Hang on, let me finish. My question to your witness is there any way you can guarantee that that shared driveway will remain open and clear for emergency vehicles? It's a yes or no question.
Well, he's allowed to explain his answer as well, so.
How about we try him answering first?
There would be no way for us to enforce that that was kept clear of cars at all times.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, Mr. Rogers?
Thank you.
Other board members?
Else before I jump in? Okay. I have a couple of questions as it relates to your testimony earlier about your kind of interpretation of continuous open space as opposed to contiguous, okay? So let me ask, actually first, about the kind of the redesign. You added sidewalks, right, on both sides of the street?
Correct. We previously only showed it on one side of the street. Now it's on both.
And am I correct in saying that as a part of your design, the sidewalks are used as a part of connecting the open space areas so that you can say that they are it's a continuous open space?
Correct.
So under your interpretation then, in theory, this developer, any developer, could come in and say, okay, we're going to put half of our required open space on the far left side of a development and the other half on the far right side of the development. And as long as we have a sidewalk that connects those two, under your interpretation, that is sufficient enough to say that it's continuous and therefore meets the ordinance, correct?
Correct, because that's what's been approved in other developments in the township.
I got to ask you, does that not seem like a tortured interpretation of the ordinance?
No, it does not.
Since the last hearing, you revised the design, right? You brought us back a revised design, at least by way of the sidewalks. You added sidewalks, right?
Correct. We added sidewalks and clarified some of the other requirements.
Clarified some of the other things. You contacted the HDMA, right?
Correct.
Municipal authority you gave us the testimony as it relates to the load and everything that it can handle, right?
Yes.
Probably you communicated with them by email, got them to write a letter. That's Exhibit 12, I guess. Did all that from the last hearing to this, correct?
No, we started that coordination before the last hearing. We just didn't have all of the information at that time. I previously had testified that we knew that there was no capacity in Leon Drive, but they were still investigating Orvilla Road for us.
But you added the sidewalks and looked into the capacity issue because you could tell from the last time we were together that it was a concern for the commissioners, correct?
The capacity issue was something that was ongoing. That wasn't something that just started as part of the last hearing.
But since the last meeting, since our last hearing, neither you nor anyone else on behalf of the developer has contacted our fire marshal, correct?
That is correct.
Anybody else have any other questions? Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I do have one other question for you. You gave testimony about the fire marshal and the cart width, right?
Correct.
Your assumption is that that is his concern with this development, correct? There could be others. But you don't know because you haven't spoken to him.
Turned it off. Objection, this has been asked and answered numerous times at both the last hearing and now again this hearing, and he has been straightforward and said he has not spoken with the fire marshal. So
Okay.
that was the answer.
All right, we'll move along. Anything else, Tom?
Nope.
Okay, anybody else on the board have questions? All right, it's time now for parties. If anyone has questions relative to this witness's testimony, now's the time. If you wouldn't mind lining up, right, thanks. It makes it easier. So we do have a cutoff at 10 o'clock, so let's see what we can get done. What's your name, ma'am?
Hi, Christy Westover.
Christy, you're a party, right?
Yes.
Okay, what's your question for the witness?
Yeah, I'm on that corner of Buckthorn and Leon. I was wondering this is going to be an emergency access. What does that look like in practice?
So it would be up to the fire marshal for what the final material would be, whether it's a grass paved system or has to be asphalt or concrete.
Okay, so that would likely in some way be paved so it can travel through?
Yes, it has to be able to support the load of the fire apparatus.
And what is to deter residents from using that access point?
Depending on what the fire marshal's preference would be, we could do bollards with a chain, we could do removable bollards. Any sort of those items are typically used to deter cars and other vehicles from driving on emergency access routes.
And is that required, or is that just possible?
I don't believe it's required, but most likely would be installed.
Sure, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Deborah Kimball, and I'm a party.
Deborah?
I'm wondering, all these different developments that you named in Hatfield Township, how many of those developments have a single access that have the smaller roads?
The Bexley development is a cul-de-sac that is 2,000 feet long. It is a single access point development.
Is that over 55?
No.
Okay, so we have one that you can show. The others have multiple access?
The other developments that I referenced today, yes, they have multiple access points. There are other developments within the township that have single access points.
Okay, but they're not cluster developments like you're trying to put in here?
MacArthur, which is right off a 40-foot road to the north of this, is single-family homes and has a single access to 40-foot road.
And how many homes are in there?
I believe it's 50-something. I don't know the exact number.
Okay, so that's really not cluster housing, right? Because 54 you could put in here with no problem. We wouldn't even need this hearing. Is that correct?
There is a different by right option for this property, yes.
My other question is, by expanding the road by several feet that you put in and putting in sidewalks on the other side of the street, where have you taken that acreage from? Did you shorten the driveways so they'll be forced to park in the street? How is that coming off the acreage of each home?
It's not coming off. As I had stated, there is a 50-foot wide proposed right-of-way for these roads already. All the improvements for sidewalk and cartway widths fit within that 50 feet, so there was no change to the layout of the plans as part of adding the sidewalks.
Thank you.
Tom Deller, I have a question about, have you any measurements yet on how much land is impervious once the building place?
No, we have, so there is no overall impervious requirement as part of the zoning code. There's only requirements for the individual lots. We show compliance with the individual lot requirements, but all other impervious calculation and design would be something that's handled during land development.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a proposed or anticipated point of connection to the storm sewers? Will that be done connection to Leon Drive, or do you know where that might be at this time?
Not at this time. Stormwater management would be designed during the land development process.
As far as the open space in the middle area of the development, are there planned parks or swing sets, that type of thing for kids?
We're not showing anything on the plans currently. Again, during land development, if that's something that was desired by the township and agreed upon, we could vet that issue then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ignesh Patel. All right, Chris. You did a good research on other development last month. Really good job. Regard to the access, all those new development, how many development has only single access? I think somebody asked, but I just want to repeat that again.
The Del Webb property has 2 access points.
It's a gated community, right?
Correct.
Okay. And what other two you mentioned earlier?
The Sterling Walk and Bexley.
Blacksea has how many unit Blacksea has it?
I think it's 35 on the
35
cul-de-sac.
units. 35 units, right?
Correct.
And what about the Sterling?
That's 40 units.
40 units. And how many unit you are putting on the new proposed development?
This is not a proposed Del Webb, but
Not proposed, this one right here on the board. How many units?
78 units is proposed.
78 units. Kind of almost double those units, right? Double than the Black Sea and the Sterling, right?
Approximately, yes.
Yes, okay. Do you prefer one access or do you prefer two access or multiple access for this property?
The way that we have it designed is just with the single access out to Grapevine.
Did you review any or all of the possible alternate access to the site?
We did look at using Buckthorn as a second access point also.
Okay, and what did you guys came up with it?
Through our iterations, we determined that using Grapevine as a single access point was the better option.
Okay, do you have some sort of traffic study?
Yes, there was some traffic study done. The traffic
Do you
engineer
have
can
a
speak
rough
to that.
number, how many cars gonna be?
The traffic engineer can speak to that.
Okay, traffic engineer can speak, okay. Understand that. Did you have study anything regarding a 20 feet wide access easement, putting an access or anything? Or did you
The
review or did
existing
you?
access easement that goes out to Orville Road,
Yes.
yes, we have reviewed it.
Okay, my other question is, just as a general, if you put a two-way traffic for cars only, no trucks or anything, what is the minimum width of the road, cartway width required? It's just a general, not the specified by the township.
I'd just object the relevancy of the question.
I will come to the relevant, I have the next question.
Hang on, there's an objection, so just one second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I understood his question so well, so, Mr. Patel, I'd like you to, you want to know what the regulation is for a width of a cartway within the development?
Not the regulation, based, like, what, in his general experience throughout the years, what the minimum street width needed for the two-car lane, just the cars, no trucks, just the cars.
Okay, so
What is the
based on his
minimum?
experience, what is the norm?
No, yeah, normal street width needed for it.
Okay.
Well, I would object to that. It's not relevant. There's a requirement in the ordinance that we've been through in the subdivision land development ordinance.
Well,
Not
he's
relevant.
testified that they expect a waiver just like other people got relative to cart width, so it's
Well,
relevant.
wait a minute. Please, let's clarify that because this is an issue here tonight. 28 feet wide cartway is permitted for the internal roadways here, except for the cul-de-sac, according to the subdivision land development ordinance. So 28 feet is permitted.
Testified at length regarding cartway width. His question is about cartway width and what's normal in his experience. You opened the door, he can answer the question. So your objection's
Well-
overruled.
I open the door to relevant questions, but over my objection, I understand.
If it's too difficult for him to answer, then maybe you could have a sidebar. But if
He didn't get a chance to answer it yet. I made the objection, so whether
Right.
it was difficult for him or not, you wouldn't know because he didn't get a chance to.
Well, let's do that. Chris,
Okay.
can you answer the question? What's normal cartway width in your experience?
I think he was actually asking for minimum, and I would say down to 24 feet would be a minimum cartway width.
Okay, if it's possible, would you be willing to negotiate with the, I don't know, maybe not relevant answer, if you be willing to negotiate with the neighbors or property owners surrounded by the 20-foot access and increase the width of the access and put another access, the property to the Orvilla, just for the future.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
My understanding is that the applicant has reached out to the adjacent property owners along Orvilla. I don't know where those conversations, if they've happened or where they've led, but they have reached out to have conversations with them.
And what we're talking about is another access out to our villa, a full access? Was that his question?
My question is, they can negotiate and get more lands or widen the easement? Instead of 20 foot, make it 25 or something, using a neighbor's property or something?
Question is, can they make it wider
Yeah,
by
to-
obtaining more
yeah,
land?
yeah, more
And you're
land,
hang
yes.
on, let's not talk over each other because of the stenographer. So your question is, that emergency access that's 20 feet, your question is, can he get more land to make it wider?
Yes.
Okay, and so it would be a full access and not just emergency? Or is that your question, Mr.
Yes,
Patel?
that's, can they be used as full access?
Okay, so hang on. Do you have an answer to that?
There's a lot of what ifs in that scenario with acquiring properties and, further design to another access out to Orvilla Road. Is it
But
possible? Yes, if they acquired the property and did redesign and things like that, yes, it would be possible.
Else, Mr. Patel?
Yes, I do have it. Regarding the last hearing, Chris says surveyor walked to the site and noted all the findings on the site.
Correct.
Is surveyor, wait a second, is surveyor found any kind of evidence for the cemetery or burial site on the developed site, on the proposed site?
Cemetery or burial site, that's who he's looking for. Any evidence of that on the property?
No, none that we're aware of.
Okay. How the survey was performed, by traditional method or the advanced technology method? How the field survey was performed?
How was the field survey performed?
Yes.
I'm not sure if they used aerial equipment to fly it. Boundary surveys are done typically with GPS units.
Should be noted on a survey map, right? Because surveyor certified and signed it, right?
We have an Alta survey.
You have an Alta survey, but surveyors should have noted that on the plan, that how they perform the survey. If there is an aerial photography or aerial or unmanned aircraft were used, they will note that on a survey map. Yes or no?
Not necessarily.
Okay. You say ECS is a geologist, and they verified the wetlands and everything, and they provided the CAD file.
Correct. They're an environmental consultant.
Okay. Is anybody on the ECS is a surveyor or certified to locate the physical evidence of the flags?
They don't have to be a surveyor to provide us that information.
You are putting those flags on the map for the final design, or not final design, for the design purposes.
Correct.
So it need to be verified by some certified surveyors, or located by, or verified by the surveyor. That's what my question is.
No, it does not need to be certified by a surveyor.
So basically, the ECS provided CAD file could be the approximate line. Nobody verified it or nobody certified it, right?
They're certifying that that is the line.
They are certified that is the line, but what is the verification of that line? Did anybody?
I think your question is, what are the qualifications
Yeah,
of the person
yes.
who did the soil survey?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if you know that.
I believe he's just a PE, professional engineer, licensed in the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay, professional engineer is verified to locate the wetland flags or wetland lines on the field?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Up to you guys.
Anything else, Mr. Patel?
I do have some other questions. Yes, I do.
Now's the time.
You are proposing 28 feet wide, one-side parking on the street, right?
Correct.
Okay. My next question is, how many bedroom will be provided in a one unit?
These are 4-bedroom houses.
4-bedroom house? And are you planning to provide the finished basement?
I don't know that they'll be finished, but these units will have basements.
Okay. So you're not sure if there will be finished and how many bedroom will be provided on the basement? You are not sure about it?
I'm sorry, what was the last question?
He wanted to know if you were sure if the basements would be finished and if there would be any bedrooms in the basement.
I think this is way outside of redirect testimony and even direct testimony.
Overruled. Do you know if the basements are going to be finished for bedrooms? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. What's next, Mr. Patel?
All right, so four bedrooms. And how many parking provided in the one unit?
It's an attached 2-car garage, and then the driveway can also park 2 cars.
4 cars?
Yes.
4 cars per unit, okay. My next question is, between the 2 driveways of the 2 units, what is the distance between the 2 driveways?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
So what is the width of the lots?
The minimum lot width is 80 feet.
80 feet, so we can roughly count it 70 feet between the driveways?
Depending on which way they're flipped, if they're close to each other or not, yes, approximately.
Okay, 70 feet plus the 10 feet wide driveway, so it's somewhere around 50 feet between the driveway to park the cars, or 40 feet.
Yes.
Okay, how many cars would it fit in a 40 feet?
At least 2.
At least 2. So you are providing about 4 parking into the 1 unit and 2 additional parking for 2 on this side and 2, so 2 additional parking for the 4 units. My understanding is.
That's how many cars you could fit in that area that was discussed, yes.
Okay. What if the house has 6 cars and they use it all the parking?
There's a specific parking requirement in the code that we need to meet.
Coming back to open space, you said something about, or ask about 75 feet needed if there is no trails or anything, right?
Correct, that's what the code says.
Okay, what is the width of the open space at the northeast corner of the property?
Adjacent to lot 1,
Yes.
there's no open space being included within our calculated area. The separation distance between the property line of lot 1 and the existing tract line is 49 feet.
On earlier, you said you provided 90 foot to the building envelope from the property line along the Leon Drive residence, right?
That was for the area between lots 48 and 56.
You didn't mention lot between the lot 48, and that was just mentioned. You didn't mention that earlier when we started the meeting. You said along the residence, along the Leon Drive.
The exhibit's up there now, and I was using the pointer
So
in the area that was being discussed.
lot adjacent to lot 1 that you are proposing. Is this the Leon Drive residence?
Yes.
Okay. Last one. You are planning for this new development and everything, putting all trails and everything behind the residence along the Leon Drive. Are you planning to put any kind of fence or anything? Because it's our backyard.
Talking about Lot 1, right, Mr. Patel? 'Cause you
Lot
live on-
1 and along throughout all other properties too.
There's no trail shown adjacent to Lot 1 for the other properties between 48 and 56. We don't have a fence shown on this plan. We have a 10-foot wide landscape buffer area, which would include berming or landscaping to provide the separation between the existing lots and the open space. And some of those things would have to be figured out during land development once we looked at grading and other constraints.
So there is no fence design right at the moment.
Correct.
My last question, sorry, one more question came up. All of the deeds that were attached on the exhibit that I got it on the email last, it mentioned about something about deed book 1260, page 452, dated June 15, 1938. It's regard to the 20-foot wide easement. That deed was not a part of any kind of exhibit. Is there any reason for it, or township doesn't require that?
It's not a deed that's a part of this parcel.
But it is a part, it's not a deed of part of the parcel, but it is the right-of-way access. Access is another legal thing that should be attached with any kind of submission to the town.
You know what he's referring to, Chris?
He's asking why we did not include the easement document for the existing 20-foot wide easement that goes out to Orville Road, because he was referencing the deeds that were included in the original exhibit book.
Okay.
And my answer was just that that was not a deed that was part of compromising or creating this parcel, and therefore it wasn't included.
Okay. Julie, didn't you say you would provide that, though? That easement document?
We
think
have
Tom-
the deed book and page number up there, and it is public record. Now, you know,
Oh,
look,
it's on
we
the
can
plan?
provide it, but again, it's a private right of easement. So,
But the deed book and page is on the plan, so we can all pull it
is
from public records.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm
All right, that's
not
it
an
for-
issue.
That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. I have a question while then we wait for the next person. So on the plan, Chris, where you talk about the open space area between lots 48 and 56, it looks like there's landscaping. So you have the new Pulte house, their backyard, then I see landscaping, then I see trail. Is there room for landscaping on the other side of the trail, so the neighbors on Leon Drive would have landscaping between them and the trail?
There is. If you want to go back to the detail exhibit, that one.
That's something that you could
This-
consider during land development?
Yeah, so this white line, I know it's a little hard to see, that's
Yeah.
a 10-foot offset from the property line. That's the 10-foot landscape buffer, which is a separation buffer that's mentioned in the ordinance. And within that 10-foot buffer area is where we would provide berming and landscape for the screening from the existing parcels along Leon Drive to the open space.
Was your testimony that you were going to do that around the whole perimeter of the property?
We're showing the landscape buffer around the entire perimeter of the property. There's many areas that have existing vegetation that we wouldn't enhance further, but any areas that would need more enhancement for screening, we would do that.
Could fill in the gaps when you get in land development, take a closer look and fill that in?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm
Please.
Victoria Camuso.
Thank you, Victoria.
Welcome. I heard you talking about the easement to our villa. Has anything else been in the talks for the North Penn School District owned property that dumps onto Welsh Road?
As part of the movie lots, nothing specific that I'm aware of.
No one's looking into that as an option?
There's more owners than just the school district in that area. I believe the applicant did reach out to some of them as they had prior conversations during the Dell Webb development, but I'm not aware that that has moved forward in a fashion that we could, again, do a redesign to accommodate any additional access.
From what I've gathered here tonight and previous meetings, it's been brought up several times that the fire marshal has not been contacted. Is there a reason that they have not been consulted with to date?
We're going off past experience that we have within the township and approved communities to provide emergency access and similar emergency vehicle circulation.
But every development is different.
Yes.
And when the commissioners of this township are requesting and it doesn't get addressed, it makes me wonder why.
The fire marshal would do his review during the land development process, so he will see this project and be able to comment on any item that he feels should be changed.
Okay. And my last one, in all of the research and planning that you have done regarding open space and all the other things that you're presenting to us, and you did about the wetlands, the stream, has anything been looked at into as far as the wildlife that is there? And I don't mean the rabbits and the squirrels. I'm talking about owls and maybe protected classes of animals that live there.
I'm going to object. It's not relevant to this conditional use application.
Asked if he's done a PINDY search. He can answer he did or he didn't. It's premature or it's not. He can answer it.
We have done a PINDY search, and to my recollection, it came back clear that there was no hits for any endangered wildlife that would need clearance from any of the agencies that review that.
What would that be? Like, what is an animal that you did not find?
Bog turtles, long-eared bats, they're kind of the main species that come up in this area. Spadefoot toads sometimes get hits in this area, and then there's other plant life that can also be subject to review and approval.
Are owls not included in that?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I'll check. Thank you.
Susan Donahue. Victoria mentioned the other property that you may have had some conversations with. Does this plan allow for any connection if in the future that land would be developed for another road to connect into this plan?
Are you speaking about connections to Orvilla Road?
No, to the property that currently is owned partly by the school district.
So
Between this property and Welsh Road, there's all that other
right,
land.
so existing, you have the stubs for Buckthorn and Grapevine. We are not proposing anything like that to connect into the rest of the movie lots to the south of the property at this time.
No other stumps going into that larger property.
No, we would have to redesign the plan to be able to provide that.
You had mentioned last meeting, and I think this meeting, that you characterize this development as being in character with our existing neighborhood. Do you have a list of criteria that you use to define that it's in character?
Not a specific checklist necessarily, more so from a use standpoint, because these are single-family lots that will be owned. It's not a townhouse development or condo-type development.
So by character, you're saying it's just the fact that it's a single-use home? Because I'm not hearing of, throughout the last two meetings, of virtually anything that is similar to our existing neighborhood.
we're going to have public roadways with sidewalks on each side and single-family lots, which is very similar to what is in the area now.
Are the lots significantly smaller than what is in the area now?
They are smaller as part of being a cluster development.
And the roads are much smaller? I think we've determined that multiple times.
The roads are not much smaller. And
Or narrower than the existing neighborhood? Parking only on one side, is that correct?
Correct, but the road widths are allowed per the ordinance, the 28 feet.
I wasn't asking about whether they were allowed. I was talking about if they're similar in character to our neighborhood now.
I'm not exactly sure what the width of Leon Drive is. However, the right-of-way widths on Grapevine is the same. It's a 50-foot right-of-way. And if there's a minor change in roadway width, it would not be something that would be readily noticed with a few feet less cartway compared to what's in the surrounding area.
In the character of the neighborhood, though, a narrower road with parking on one side is not really in the same character. You just say that you do have 2 sidewalks, but you have smaller lots. The houses, I believe you said, were 3,000 square foot, which is significantly bigger than almost all of the houses in the existing neighborhood.
So I'm going to pause and add a comma, right, question mark? Because
Right,
this is,
question mark?
there we go.
Is that correct? That I thought I heard you say that they were 3,000 square feet.
Correct. 3,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms, attached garages.
And only parking for 2 cars in the driveway?
Correct.
Anything else that is similar? We're not finding many similar characters. Do you
Objection
feel
to the
like-
characterization.
Okay, so do you feel that you do not have a checklist, that what you find similar in nature is really subjective?
Yes.
It's really your opinion that it's the character of the neighborhood is not the same, is the same,
It fits the general character of the area, yes.
in your
That-
opinion? In your opinion.
Correct.
And then I have one other question. We talked a lot about access for fire trucks and emergency vehicles. I haven't heard anything about access for construction and how construction vehicles would be accessing the site.
That's something that would be determined during the land development process in coordination with the county and the NPDS permit process.
In the nature of our development and having to come through, do you foresee any safety issues or have had to, or have knowledge of other access roads being needed in developments for safety of construction vehicles coming in and out during building phase, establishment of the new construction?
Depending on the size of the equipment that needs to be brought in, special measures may need to be taken, but that's something that the contractor would arrange during construction.
Are you aware of any of separate easements for construction being done in any of the existing clusters in Hatfield Township?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So as of now, this plan is for fire use easements, but or where construction vehicles, which could be large vehicle, a development of this size would require large equipment for construction. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how many years would you foresee a construction of this size development taking?
It's hard to answer that question. There's a lot of variables involved with that. Just based on generalities of this type of construction, there would be the process of the earthwork and infrastructure, which would take 6 months to a year, and then they would start building the houses after that, and the houses would be built as they're sold.
So you could foresee it taking well over 12 months, potentially much longer?
Potentially, yes.
Great, thank you. That's all I have.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Do you know, we don't have a copy of that access easement, and do you know if it would permit construction vehicles?
Are you asking him or me? Because it's more of a legal document, so, I mean, and now you're talking about interpretation of a private easement. So
why don't I ask it a different way? There's only 3 options for access to this property with construction vehicles. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
All right, so we have either the access easement, or you have Grapevine, or Buckthorn.
Correct.
And do construction vehicles use one access, or do they spread it out among more than one access, in your opinion?
It could be limited to one access if that was something that was desired by the township and worked out during land development.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking, like, what's normal? You've been to pre-construction meetings with the county conservation district. What do they require? It's one construction access, right?
A minimum of one construction access. You can have more, but you typically try to keep it to one.
So if the access out to our villa does not permit construction vehicles, they would have to use either, what is it again?
Buckthorn or Grapevine.
Buckthorn or Grapevine?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am, what's your name?
Joanne Orpiza.
What was it again?
Joanne Orpiza.
Thank you.
Those other neighborhoods that you mentioned earlier, do they all go through an existing neighborhood rather than the entrance exit coming off a main road?
Sterling Walk is an extension by some commercial buildings. The other developments go out to existing roads.
Main roads? Rather than into a neighborhood is what I mean, like the way it would be into Grapevine?
Correct.
So there's really none of those other neighborhoods do the same kind of entrance exit that you're proposing with this?
Correct. They do not go into an existing residential development.
Okay, and then also, what is the purpose of the trail that is behind the houses on Leon when there is sidewalk in the neighborhood, in the newly proposed neighborhood, and also in the existing neighborhood? I'm not understanding what the point of a walking trail there is. It doesn't go anywhere or connect to anything. It seems, is it just to reduce the amount of, it would be 75 feet you would get if you didn't have the trail there, but it's reduced to only 50 feet because it's a trail that doesn't go anywhere. Is that right?
So part of the common open space requirements is that it predominantly consists of natural environment features, planted material, which may contain walking, biking, or equestrian trails. So in the open space provision, it contemplates trails. Separately from that, if a trail is provided, then you do not need to provide the 75-foot width.
Right, but it's a trail that doesn't go anywhere, correct?
Correct. It's just within that.
And there are sidewalks on both sides of each neighborhood. So I just, it doesn't to me, but that's my opinion. And then, as far as the blasting, what protections do the houses in the existing neighbor have from anything that should happen because of any blasting?
So for blasting, there is pre-blast surveys that are done of properties within a certain distance to make sure that once blasting happens, that there's no damage, and if there is, then it's corrected.
Do you typically find damage when blasting into existing neighborhoods as close as ours?
I'm not aware of any. That's not something that I'm typically involved in. That's a construction matter, and there's blasting specialists that deal with all of that and the permits involved.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
All right, I don't see anyone else lined up. Next witness?
Matt Hammond.
Oh, hang on. Commissioner Rogers has a question.
I just wondered why the landscaping is between the new houses and the trail, not the other way around. Something that can be corrected later.
Yeah, the landscaping shown on this plan, I would say, is generally more schematic. As I said, there is a 10-foot landscape buffer that we show on the plans around the perimeter of the property, that during land development, looking at grading, we would provide berming, landscaping for that screening to be from the existing properties to the common open space area.
I would just think it'd probably be more beneficial.
That's something that we would be glad to work out and explore during land development if this moves forward.
Christie?
Sorry, what was your last question? I was going to make sure that wasn't my same question.
Mine was about the landscaping that's in between the new homes and the trail, and why the landscaping isn't on the other side of the trail between Leon and the.
Right, yeah, I was going to ask about the current landscaping that's behind these houses. We currently have some very old, large trees, and I was just wondering if those were going to be torn out and replaced with tiny new trees, or if the current landscaping was going to stay in place.
This was discussed last time. That would be evaluated during land development, depending on the grading, which trees could remain as part of an existing buffer or which trees may have to be removed.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, let's call your next witness.
Yes. So we're stopping at 10 tonight, is that correct? Because I'm not going to get through this witness, and he just informed me he cannot make the June meeting date. He is on vacation.
What do you want to do? Do you have another witness to call?
No, not at this time. I would need Matt to testify next. I'm happy to conclude tonight and
don't call another.
When's the next?
Well, that was going to be my next.
Yeah, I think it's June 25th, he said, and he's away that week, the last week in June.
June 26th.
Yes, he's away that week.
You're away June 26th?
That week.
That entire week.
Well, can't you come back for the hearing and testify? I mean, we're all here, Matt. Why can't you come back?
Exactly.
I will be divorced.
Well, it's your hearing, Julie, so we either you do something else on June 26th or we push to July. And that's when I go on vacation, so.
Oh, no, that week.
Yep. But we could maybe talk about a special date? I don't know.
Yeah.
Go off the record and let's talk about calendars and
Yes,
what we're going to do.
please.
I think
That would be great.
All right, let's do that. Let's go off the record.
That makes sense.
Okay, all right. We're going to go back on the record. All right, let the record reflect, I just conferred with counsel and the witnesses, for the people in the audience, that there's a motion to continue this hearing until Monday, June 24, 7:30 PM prevailing time. Counsel, you agree? Julie? Tom?
Yes.
Okay, all right. There's a motion in order by the commissioners to continue this on the record to June 24 at 7:30.
All right, so I need to call a vote?
Yep, let's do that.
All right. Well.
Is there a motion?
Chair will make the motion. Is
Okay.
there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions or comments? Scheduling June 24, 7:30 here. Continuation of the hearing. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Hearing none, we got it.
So for the residents, there's no further communication. This is your notice, okay? And if you are not on the email list and you would like copies of the exhibits that were presented tonight, come on up and give me your email address and we'll be sure you get them. All right.
Earlier the
We can do
better.
that. Sure.
Hang on, looks like we're changing a start time. You guys good with 7 o'clock instead of 7:30?
Yes.
Sure, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Amend the motion or no?
Yeah, let's amend that motion. Let's have a start time on June 24 of 7 PM prevailing time.
All right, the chair will make an amendment to the motion as just described. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that's 7 o'clock.
Thank you. We can now go back into your regular meeting. You have to finish that up, right? Don't you have last agenda item? We already did that. Continuance is done. We're back to
No,
the agenda.
Just citizen comments, and that's it. All right, so we're back in the regular meeting, right?
Yep.
Kristen, we're back in the regular meeting? Yes. Okay, we're back in the regular meeting, folks. We're out of the hearing. The only thing we have remaining on our agenda, our regular agenda, is citizens' comments. Not about the hearing, but any citizens' comments? Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks for coming out, folks.